right, the Dylan Raiola era has officially begun in Lincoln, Nebraska. Final score yesterday, Nebraska 40, UTEP 7. Nebraska scoring 40's got to feel pretty good. I understand it's a true freshman quarterback. They got Colorado next week, and that'll be a massive game. But I'm just saying now, to see that output from your offense and to have a day like that if you're in Nebraska, it's got to feel good. Got to feel good. So what does it mean going forward? And what do we have to say about Dylan Raiola after his first start? We'll talk about that right now, but make sure you are subscribed right here to the On3 YouTube channel. College football every single day. Want y'all a part of it. If you're a college football sicko, the season is on and popping. We want y'all here, so make sure you're locked in. Make sure you're subscribed. Also follow me on Instagram and on Twitter at JDPakel. So, overarching, Nebraska in this game started out a little bit rusty. Okay, defensively, there's a few gash plays. You can't have that letdown in the secondary where they hit that deep shot in this. I think it was like a slot fade. And I can't have that, especially against Colorado next week. Cannot happen. Cannot fumble the ball in the red zone, all those things. I don't think you necessarily put too much stock into some of the early, I don't know what the right word would be, early, knocking off the rust that you saw from Nebraska. What I think encourages you if you're Nebraska is that looks like a totally different outfit offensively. I'm not talking about the scheme. I'm talking about just the sheer execution. And I think, quite frankly, the way that you felt if you're a Nebraska fan. Seeing Dylan Raiola, even if it wasn't him pushing the ball downfield, seeing the way that he operated in the pocket, you just felt like something good was about to happen whenever he was back there. You felt like he was about to make the right play. Whereas before, I think if you were a Nebraska fan last year, whoever was playing quarterback for you any given week and the play breaks down or maybe he's outside the pocket, you're like, oh boy, please don't throw the ball to the other team. Probably the most impressive thing yesterday from Dylan Raiola, 0 interceptions. Hey, let's get fired up about that. 0 interceptions from the true freshman. You saw why he's your guy, though, yesterday, if you're a Nebraska fan. Like, the offense did great. I mean, over 200 yards rushing. That's going to be good enough to win a lot of football games. It's UTEP, I understand. But, like, seeing Dylan Raiola unlock different parts of the field, you're like, oh, yeah, if I needed more convincing as to why 15 is QB1, you got everything you needed and then some in that game yesterday. The reason why, the offense, to me, again, you unlock other parts of the field. If you're those safeties, like, you have to respect the fact that he may very well throw it over your head to a Jamal Banks or to a Isaiah Nayor. Also, just the overall gear that it feels like this offense has with him at quarterback. It feels like this offense is just capable of more with him at quarterback, which was kind of the talking point when you were talking about who would be the starting quarterback at Nebraska. That was why you would, I think, for the most part, favor Dylan Raiola. And the perfect example of this is Nebraska, huge chunk play. Looks like they're going to be in 1st and goal. Bring it back. I think it was like offensive pass interference or what have you, and they push it back to a 2nd and 30. Y'all, last year's 2nd and 30 for Nebraska was like, hey, are we punting? Are we close enough to try a field goal? Like, we're in 2nd and 30. We're not going to convert this. In 2 passes, Dylan Raiola said, boom, bam, set them up for a 1st down, and they ultimately scored on that drive. Just having that in the bag, having that as a possibility for you now at Nebraska, to go with this defense, to go with this run game. That's what fires you up, because as much as it's like the offense has another gear, the other thing that fires you up about him now being your quarterback, you see the chance to play complementary football. Even if it's not a deep shot, you feel like he's going to, again, make something good happen. Now, I will say this. I don't know how much we'll see the pushing the ball deep from him throughout the course of this season. It was great to see him connect on those yesterday and, going 19 for 27, 238 and 2 tutties. I mean, probably feels pretty good, but the fact that he has that in the bag, again, after those deep touchdowns, speaking of complementary offense, that opened up the rest of the playbook from what I could tell. Like, you could see on those meshes when it was an RPO play, those safeties, they weren't triggering as quickly after they got beat deep. Those linebackers, they were double-checking a little bit before they went and played the run. So what does that do? Gives your offensive line a head start, gives your running back a few more yards to work with to get downhill. Like, all those things work together to make this offense operate the way that you would have it operate. He was locked in yesterday. Like, you could not have told me that he was a true freshman if I did not know that going into that game. Was in total command, made the boring plays. That's important here. Anytime you have a special arm like Dylan Raiola has, and I mean, you just got a wing that's touched by God, like sometimes you tend to trust in that a little bit too much. You see some throws downfield, you get greedy. There wasn't a whole lot of that yesterday. Not saying there won't be some of that throughout the course of his freshman season, but you saw him, again, make the boring play, and when he had to, eat it. Like, that was encouraging to me. And now this is something that we can't really quantify, but I think needs to be discussed, because Nebraska, they're better than UTEP. Like, that's not really so much the talking point, that they were dominant defensively, got that safety. I mean, overall, outside of a couple miscues, played great. The takeaway for me from yesterday is that Dylan Raiola has got the it factor. And some of this is hard to quantify because it doesn't really show up in the box score, but just seeing him walk out of the tunnel and seeing him just, embracing the moment, getting fired up with the fans, not looking timid. Like, he knew what he was out there to do yesterday, and he looked like he belonged. He looked like he expected to be there and played that way, played with that poise, played with that confidence. And I'll say this, your quarterback sets the tone for your football team, good or bad. If Dylan Raiola went out there a little bit hesitant and looked like he was a little bit unsure of himself, in some way, shape, or form, even with a veteran football team like Nebraska, that would have showed itself in other areas. There was none of that from Dylan Raiola. So, again, it's his first start. I'm not telling you he's going to be perfect throughout the rest of the way. I'm not telling you that this is, the end-all, be-all for him. But to have him play that well and hit on those deep shots in his first start, build some confidence for the game against Colorado next week, just turns the volume up even more on, I think, your expectations for him, your expectations for Nebraska. And I'm extremely, extremely excited to see what he becomes throughout the course of this season. But next week will be a massive test as they welcome Colorado for a night game. That'll be prime time. No pun intended. Make sure you're subscribed right here. We appreciate y'all locking in with us. We're going to keep this party rolling. We will see y'all next time. Hey y'all, thanks so much for watching. Subscribe to the channel here to make sure you don't miss an episode of The Hard Count. Also be sure to check out other videos on the On3 YouTube channel.